Good morning. What an inspiring story we've just heard, and what a great discussion. It's my pleasure to be here today. Thanks to Goretti and the INC Executive Committee for the very kind invitation to chair today's panel. And I'm pleased to moderate the panel, and the introductions we'll get to in just a minute. So, as all of you review our presentation today, we're going to try and cover 5 main issues. You'll see them here, and we're going to cover them both in my short presentation and also in our panel discussion. So, as all of you review the worldwide production chart, you'll see that it appears that we have a good supply of peanuts with an excellent crop currently being harvested in Argentina, and increased planted acres or hectares forecast for China and India, and likely a small increase in the United States. In fact, U.S. production for peanuts in 2019 is projected up 3% to 5.6 billion pounds or 2.6 million metric tons. And that's based on a modest increase in intended plantings and normal yields. The National Agricultural Statistics Service in the United States puts out its prospective plantings report and showed that most peanut acreage gains are expected in Texas and Florida, where cotton acreage is expected to be down. For 2019-20, global peanut production is projected up almost 3% to about 40.5 million tons. Of course, weather will play a key role in the months ahead as to what supply we actually have later in 2019 and into 2020. But things look good at this point in time. So what are the best ways to build markets for increased production? Well, we think new product development is very important, and there are many new products such as confections, cereal bars, and even new snackable peanut butter products that have come out in the United States to offer consumers. And peanuts has a great story to tell. We benefit from a good and diverse worldwide supply from many origins, value pricing, and good margins. Peanuts are very sustainable, and that's a very important topic these days. Peanuts are a seasonal plant, which is relatively drought tolerant. It's nitrogen fixing, so you don't have to add fertilizer. We have low greenhouse gas emissions and a good environmental footprint, which provides a low-cost source of very high-quality plant-based protein. And again, you can't pick up a journal or anything these days, or look at a newsletter and not hear about plant-based protein. And all of us have a great story in the nut community to tell in that regard. So we'll also be talking about a few mega trends where peanuts fit in quite nicely, and some of the opportunities in terms of markets going forward. We have our challenges, and we'll discuss a few of those as well. So let's move immediately into our panel discussion. We're very pleased to have a great panel today. We have Mr. Daniel Whitehouse, who's joining us. He is the Global Category Director for Nuts at Mars Wrigley Confectionery. Daniel. We also have with us Mr. Jamie Brown, Director of Sales and Logistics at Olam Peanut Shelling Company in the United States, which is a division of the Olam Group. And I'm also very pleased to introduce Mr. Jens Vergen, owner and CEO of Omnitrade in Hamburg, Germany. And you can see everyone's bio, of course, in the program app. Well, my first question looks at production forecast, especially in China, by far the world's largest producer of peanuts at around 16, 17 million tons annually. And I'd like to get the panel's reaction, and I'll start with Jamie, on how he thinks the increase in crop size in China of 5% or maybe even more, as some are forecasting for this year, how that's going to affect world markets. Because as we know, China is a big driver in so many different agricultural areas.
So for us at this time, more than just driving the market's a mentality. We all know that when China produces the most in the world, they also consume the most in the world. And consistently over the past few years, they're consuming a lot more than they're producing. And therefore, they're finding themselves into markets that will gladly sell to them and sell large volumes very quickly. So Now when markets in the last 4 or 5 years began to plan out their supply and their demand, their production, and what pricing could look like, the question that always comes into effect is what will happen in China? What would be the impact of the Chinese crop? Because what we could be looking at as a demand in our country could change drastically if there's something going on with China, if consumption is going higher or so forth. So with the idea this year that there could be a 5% increase or whatever the number may end up being, people start looking in their markets and saying, okay, are we going to be a supplier? Are we going to have a chance to sell that excess off to buyers coming in from China at this point? They're consistently buying from other areas. The question is, like for us in the United States, is are we going to have the pricing capable to ship it off to them, comparatively speaking, to someone else they may be able to buy from? So I think, yes, the impact on the market will definitely be there if the numbers end up being 5% or higher. The question is, who's going to be the next lowest price in the industry that can be able to ship to China at that point?
All right, very good. Anybody else want to offer an opinion here?
You know, I mean, I think I agree with Jamie. You know, I think China is a big important market. I think sometimes because of the lack of data that we have out of China, we can tend to ignore it because it's quite difficult to understand. It can be a bit of a black box, but certainly the impact of what happens there on the crop. And if they have a good year, I think, you know, it will impact peanut prices in general, and I think it'll impact the lower end of the market particularly hard.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, but I think that the price is not only the only issue to increase consumption. So I think prices are going up and going down. So we have to we have to develop markets which are not so depending on prices. So I think for us it's very important to develop a certain food trend that people eating nuts regardless where the prices is. I remember that we were having times where we believed that when the price goes over a certain level that people are not consuming any more nuts. We see now in Germany that even if a price is going to a certain or above a certain level, that consumption is not going down, but even continuing growing, and because there's a certain trend. It's a trend of having something natural, having something very healthy. So I think this is the trend in the future. So the price is something, but prices are coming down and coming up. So I think nut consumption has to be completely disconnected from this price idea. So we have to find new ways to consume nuts, to find new occasions, and then I think consumption will grow, and then the price is not any more of an issue.
Thank you, Jens. Jamie, we've seen that recent world consumption trends appear to be softening or even flat in some markets. What do you believe to be some of the main factors influencing that recent trend?
So there's multiple things that come into play when we're looking at those numbers, the flat demand or the consumption use. Particularly in the United States, what I can talk about particularly is that the United States consumption is about 65% in the peanut butter realm. There has been some growth, of course, in the snacking side and on the candy side. But for the United States, 65–70% of consumption is in peanut butter. Peanut butter demand has fluctuated depending on the economy. So when the economy does really well, when most people are going for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and now they have a little bit more disposable income, they're heading towards a different direction, maybe fast food, maybe a night out, or whatever the case may be. So for consumption in the United States particularly, the economy is going to have an impact on peanuts. The other side of it too is that we have seen a decrease in commodity pricing across multiple areas, particularly other nuts. When you comparatively speak and look at peanuts, the price has been pretty regular for the last 4 or 5 years all the way through, whereas we've seen some different fluctuations in other nuts, particularly tree nuts and so forth. So the comparison of going out and normally buying peanuts because they've stayed at the same price, well, now you have other nuts that maybe the price has gone down, and well, we're going to eat that now because the price, comparatively speaking, has changed. So I think those definitely have a lot of things to do with it. And on the other side too is, again, marketing, finding that new consumption, developing the new products, whether it be something that's coming in from Mars or from somebody else, from the development of bars or snack nuts and so forth. So right now I see us being flat because of those reasons, but I see the opportunity of growth ahead being gigantic.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, switching to the other side of the world, we've seen a doubling of production in Brazil over the past 5 years or so. Do you think Brazil will continue to grow? And if so, how do you think that might affect production in Argentina and elsewhere for that matter?
Yeah, sure. So I think, Brazil is one of our bright spots, when you look at the origins that are developing around the world in the peanut space. And, I think it's over many years, it's had a good track record. They've seen double-digit growth rates, 20, 30% for the last 5 years. And I think, there's a trend, there's a lot of reasons to be positive that trend can continue. And I think there's two main reasons for that. So the first of all is land. Brazil is a big country. There's a lot of land, and it just so happens, the areas where they grow peanuts there's a lot of good agricultural land available. Those familiar with it, peanut production's based in the Sao Paulo region, so in the southeast of the country, and in that area, sugarcane is really king. And the exciting thing is that peanuts are a great rotation crop with sugar. And I think, the industry is obviously aware of this, but it's an awareness that continues to grow. And I think, you're seeing more and more sugarcane farmers adopt peanuts into their rotations. So I think that's an exciting opportunity. The other thing I'd say on the land front is that it's not just sugarcane. It's not just a sugarcane story. There's plenty of other areas which today might be, pasture for cattle, where there's opportunities to grow peanuts. There's some good soils down there, and plenty of opportunity to grow more peanuts. I think the biggest bottleneck is infrastructure, right? And that's a problem that can be solved in time. I think the other reason why I'm, optimistic on Brazil is because of the commitment to quality as well, right? It's an industry that's building for quality. They know that they're going to be an export market. They're targeting the European Union and other markets where they can send their peanuts. The most challenging markets to get into. And these guys have got a lot of hoops to jump through already. So, they're really focused on doing the right thing from a quality perspective. It's 100% high lake, or majority of peanuts there are high lake, which is important from a quality perspective for brands such as ours. So, those two things combined mean I think we've got a lot to look forward to coming out of Brazil going forward. And, I think Argentina will be impacted. Sure, they're going to need to be competitive on the export markets, particularly into Europe. I think a lot's going to depend on how this industry innovates, how we do find new ways to grow consumption, because there is a lot of peanuts that are being grown, a lot of origins that are expanding. So, we have to grow demand as an industry going forward.
Okay, thank you. Jens, you're very involved and a big player in the in-shell market, especially in Europe. What do you see as the future of the in-shell market in Europe in the days and years ahead?
First of all, I think in-shells are a wonderful product because they're offering not only the pleasure to the customer to eat a nut, they offer as well the pleasure to open the nut. So I think this gives like a pistachio or like a banana. So to find new occasions will increase definitely the demand for in-shells in Europe in general. And I give you an example. In Germany, the in-shell market was for a couple of years an entire Christmas market. So it was only available from September to January maybe. Nowadays, it's offered not only in special retailers as well as offered in discounters like Lidl and Aldi through the year long. So we see, at least in Germany, an increased demand for in-shells all over the year. And I think we have to find as well new occasions to eat in-shells, because normally people believe when they eat in-shell peanuts at home, the first thing they have to take out is the dust cleaner, because it makes a lot of dust and trash. So we can use it during barbecue. Finding new occasions will definitely increase the consumption and the demand. So I think this is the trend.
Okay, thank you. Now let's take a look at some current challenges and maybe how we prepare for future ones. Daniel, like all industries, the worldwide peanut industry faces certain challenges, and climate change seems to be accelerating faster than we originally thought, and will have huge impacts on worldwide agricultural production going forward. Do you see this as a major factor in future peanut production as well? And how do you think the industry should prepare for climate change? That's a very easy question.
Yeah, we could spend all day talking about that, but I think, climate change is a challenge, right? I think, being any agricultural crop has climate change is a real challenge. And, it's something that as an industry we need to be aware of. And I think, the leading players in this industry are aware of it as a challenge and are thinking about that. I think the biggest risk, and we've already seen it to some extent, is just the unpredictability and the change of patterns. So, what we thought we knew about the climate, is changing, and we see more weather-related risks coming in on a year-to-year basis. So I think, it's something we need to continue to watch and monitor. I think nobody knows exactly how it's going to turn out, but we need to keep, being prepared for that. I think, the great strength that the peanut industry globally has is that there's multiple different origins. And even within individual countries, peanuts are spread over large areas. So I think, that helps provide a certain level of resilience for the peanut industry as a whole and peanut availability. But certainly, I think we need to continue as an industry to work on things like variety development, making sure we're developing new varieties to cope with, different climate risks going forward, and that we continue to, expand the industry geographically as well. So, so I think, it's a challenge, but I think, the industry, if we keep on top of it and watch it, we can mitigate it.
Jens, would you agree from a European perspective?
Yeah, I would agree, and I would like to add that we have to look to more sustainable production. I mean, sustainable production means in farming, in agriculture, and as well in processing. So we have to find ways where we are producing less CO2, where we have a more sustainable production in general. And this will finally help as well to not to change the climate change, but at least to stop it or to slow it down. I think this has to be our target for the next coming years, for all of us.
Thank you. Another challenge that our industry and all of the nuts really faces food allergy. Peanut allergy has been a growing issue for the peanut industry over the past 20 plus years, I suppose. And however, there is some good promising news with the recent LEAP study that was done in London by King's College and the follow-on studies after that. It has proven that early introduction of peanuts instead of delayed introduction is the way to go. And introducing peanut protein to infants as early as 4 to 6 months seems to be the optimum time to introduce it, and it can greatly reduce the incidence of a child, even one that's susceptible to developing peanut or other food allergies. It seems to be the optimum time and can reduce it maybe as much as 80 to 85%. So also there's some new therapies that are soon to be on the market, some products that are coming out in the United States and will probably be approved in Europe as well, which will provide a way of reversing peanut allergy, at least in some individuals, particularly young children. Of course, we've seen a lot of bans on peanuts in various locales, schools, airlines, etc. And does the panel feel like peanut allergy issue has peaked for the industry, or do you believe it will continue to grow as an issue amongst consumers and the media?
So, I mean, I think it's a serious issue, right? As an industry, it is a really serious issue, and we need to continue to treat it as such. Even though there's some research out there that would suggest that, we may see an improvement in the future, I think we can't lose focus and lose sight on continuing to protect our consumers from an allergen standpoint. And I think if we get it right as an industry, there's a lot of opportunity. I think, we all agree that there's not enough innovation that happens in the peanut space. And, I know internally from some of our discussions that one of the biggest barriers is often around allergens and the fear around peanut allergens. And, if we tackle it through, rigorous control, through, making sure we're doing everything we can to protect our consumers, and then with the new technology, the research coming on, the understanding of, introducing peanuts early to try and reduce allergens. I think, I hope that we're kind of at the high water mark and that, allergens becomes less of an issue in this industry.
Okay, thank you. Looks like we have a question here from the audience. Let's see what this is here. Okay, is the panel aware of any connection between crops used in rotation with peanuts and aflatoxin risk, and where issues have been found? Has work been taken place to track back to the origin rotation?
Can you repeat that again, please?
Yeah. Is the panel aware of any connection between crops used in rotation and aflatoxin risk where issues have been found? And has that work taken place to track back to the origin rotation?
Yes, so we're very aware in the shelling industry that peanuts do their best when they're on at least a 3-year rotation, right? So for us, especially in the Southeast, using peanuts in rotation with cotton and with corn every 3 years helps calm a lot of issues, particularly when it comes to yield, when it turns out to help the land produce better peanuts. Will it necessarily have an impact on aflatoxin? Not necessarily, but what we have found is that with the growth side of it, which of course could have an impact with aflatoxin, when we find out that the ground, rotating the ground with different products could have an impact on it, as well as with our seed, right? So if we've used the same seed now for 4 or 5 years, we find that the seed is more impactful when it's used on a 3-year rotation. Will it have necessarily a direct contact with aflatoxin? It may or may not with the science on it, but we have definitely found that we're going to get a better yield, a better product, and a better peanut when we use it on a 3-year rotation.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. Let's talk a little bit about sustainability now. It's obviously a very important issue in the world today, especially with consumers and retailers. And I think we're feeling that increased interest throughout the industry. Peanuts have a great story to tell when it comes to sustainability. They're nitrogen fixing, so they don't rely upon nitrogen-based fertilizers that increase greenhouse gas emissions. Peanuts also don't require inputs all year long. And as I said earlier in my comments, they're a healthy source of plant-based protein. How much interest, I want to ask the panel members, are they seeing from their customers, particularly consumers and retailers, related to the issue of sustainability?
You want me to start?
You start.
Okay, well, Mars is asking me about it. No, I'm joking. We have a lot of interest that has come in about sustainability. We have, from the peanut industry, a great story to tell. Not necessarily pushing the sustainability story, having to come up with something, but just telling the story that we have. You know, for peanuts, for 1 ounce of peanuts, we use all of maybe 5 gallons of water, comparatively speaking to other places where, you know, it's 80 gallons of water for an ounce of other nuts. So we already have a great story to tell. We don't have to come up with anything. It's actually communicating about how well our farmers use their land, how well they produce using the minimum amount of inputs as humanly possible. So the interest that we have coming from our customers from the manufacturing side is tell us what you're doing so we can use that story to go out to our customers so they can understand that when using a peanut, they're using one of the most sustainable sources of food humanly possible.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And, you know, I'd say that, you know, to do business in the 21st century, sustainability is a license to operate, right? And unless you have a sustainability plan and you can show a commitment to doing the right thing by both the planet and by people, you're not going to get anywhere in business. And that it's true at a consumer level, it's true at a customer level, so the major retailers for us, and you know, it's true for the people who work for you as well, right? You know, I think we just heard the presentation here and how important purpose and doing the right thing was within that company. That, you know, that Chobani's been successful because of that purpose. And, you know, I think we recognize that in Mars too. If we don't have a purpose for why we're in business and what we're doing and why we're selling our product, we're not going to get good talent. We're not going to retain good talent. And if we want to be successful, we've got to have the right people internally. So I think, you know, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, sustainability is absolutely key. I couldn't agree with Jamie more. I think, you know, peanut has got a fantastic sustainability story to tell. There's a lot of good things about this crop from a sustainability point of view. We don't tell it enough. And I think it's a challenge for us as an industry in general is to how we get that message out there, you know, better than we do today.
Thank you. Jens, in Europe, are you hearing from consumers? Are you hearing from retailers? Where's the sustainability interest coming from the most, from your viewpoint, in the European market?
Well, I think you mentioned all the points already, so I think sustainability is a very important point for all the consumers, and they certainly ask where the product is coming from, what we eat tomorrow, what is healthier, what is better for the environment. So I think in general to eat natural protein-based products like peanuts instead of animal proteins, this is one part of the sustainability as well. So if we have the idea to become beyond meat, for instance, in order to eat less meat and less natural proteins, then I think this is a part of the sustainability. And I think peanuts and all the other nuts will help that we, in general, have a more sustainable, that we can offer more sustainable products. No?
Jamie, do you see an increased focus on sustainability measurement in the various peanut-producing countries, since obviously your company is involved in many peanut origin areas?
Yeah, I know for us within OLAM, sustainability is one of the main pillars that we are looking at. So as well as we have a hand in it, we are definitely driving that sustainability story. We're definitely driving the sustainability pillar, not only for us as a company, for us to give that message to our consumers, but even all the way down to our partners, the farmers, to better help them hit the goals that they have, to help them use their land to their utmost, so we can continue to develop the peanut industry the way we are. So yes, I would say there's still a lot of focus on that in every area.
And I would like to add as well something, because it's not only the product himself, it's as well how we are offering the product to the consumers. So, for instance, we are exchanging now films for the pillow bags we are using, metallized films, by only a single plastic film, which can be easily composted or recycled better than the metal film. So I think when it comes to the question of sustainability, it's not only the product itself, it's as well how we are offering the product to the customer. So it's a chain of things we have to look over in order to finally reach a sustainable product.
That's a good point, because it's not just at the farm level. It's throughout the supply chain, all the way through packaging, disposal. And as you say, that's why new compostable or disposable packaging that doesn't stay in landfills for centuries is so important. Kind of staying along some of the trends and mega trends we're seeing in the food industry worldwide, do you think the peanut industry is doing enough to capitalize on the explosion of interest in plant-based protein? That, as I said earlier, you can't pick up a newsletter or a magazine or a newspaper these days without there being some topic about plant-based protein.
Yeah, no, I don't. I think we don't, as an industry, do enough to capitalize on the trends around, whether it's plant-based protein, healthy snacking. I think, just innovating in general with peanut as a product, I think is something that we're weak on as an industry, right? And I think where we've got more opportunity to do more in the future. And I think it could be for a couple of different reasons. It could be because, people are afraid to innovate because of the allergen and the risk associated with that. I don't know, but I think, at the end of the day, we've got a product here which is a natural, with a great sustainability story to tell, cheap version of plant-based protein, and we don't see enough innovation coming out on the market.
Yeah, and we all have everybody in the room has a great story to tell about plant-based protein, and I think it's something that we all need to work hard to get the word out about the great versatility of all nuts and what a wonderful source of plant-based protein they are. And I think some of our speakers have certainly highlighted that point. But, well, it looks like the clock is ticking down. We're just about at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank the panel for taking the time to speak with us today about their perspectives on the world peanut market. And thank you for everyone in the audience for sticking in with us and listening. Thank you.